Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paolo Volpin. I'm the interim dean here at Cass Business School. I'm also professor of finance here. I'm pleased to welcome you here this evening to a very special lecture by Sir Stelios Haji-Ioannou. This event is part of the celebrations for City, University of London, 125th anniversary. Thank you so much for coming. It's wonderful to see you all here tonight. So here at the Sir John Cass Business School, we enable the extraordinary by fostering excellence in the business leaders of tomorrow. Being a global leader requires drive, energy, and confidence, as well as exceptional business capability. That's why our purpose as a business school is to help individuals, firms, and industries thrive by creating and sharing knowledge, by inspiring continual learning, and by shaping practice, policy, and debate as much as we can. Insightful teaching and world-class research are at the core of what we do here at Cass. We are proud to be one of an elite group of business schools to hold Triple Crown accreditation from AACSB, AMBA, and EQUIS, and we are consistently ranked among the best business schools in the world. Enough about Cass. Now, a brief word about our speaker. Sir Stelios graduated from Cass with an MSc in Shipping, Trade and Finance in 1988. So he is member of our Cass alumni community, which encompasses 48,000 alumni across more than 160 countries. He is, of course, quite a special alumnus. As you well know, he is best known for creating EasyJet.com in 1995 when he was just 28 years old. EasyJet, the low-cost airline that revolutionized European air travel, now carries over 100 million passengers per year with a fleet of about 350 aircrafts flying to more than 30 countries. In 2000, Stelios floated EasyJet on the London Stock Exchange, but he and his family are still the largest shareholders, holding about a third of the shares. As an active shareholder, Stelios successfully campaigned to set a dividend policy that forces the firm to pay 50% of its profits as dividends. Then Stelios started giving back to society when he turned 40 and has since formalized his charitable giving by creating the Stelios Philanthropic Foundation, which now takes up about a third of his time. The mission of the foundation is to support a diverse range of charitable activities, mainly in the countries where he has lived and worked, the UK, Greece, Cyprus, and Monaco. At Cass, he has helped many students through his Stelios Scholarship and has been instrumental in shaping and achieving our ambitions for the future, particularly through his role on our Global Advisory Board. We are proud that Sir Stelios is delivering the 125th anniversary lecture for Cass. He represents a role model for Cass students and alumni. He's hardworking and entrepreneurial, and he's an innovative, trailblazing leader. But he has also used his considerable talents to give back to the community and help others in all his philanthropic works. And that is exactly the subject that he will discuss tonight, entrepreneurship and giving back. Sir Stelios, thank you for joining us this evening, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this important matter. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming, and I hope you will have a wonderful evening with us. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'll try and make the speech, the lecture, as entertaining and as short as possible, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. And I promise that, like we started on time, we're going to finish on time at 6:30. On-time departures are very important, as you know, in the airline business, and we're not going to be late. I learned something as a result of this process, of this lecture, that our beloved alma mater, our school, is 125 years old. Actually, if you read the small print, it's the predecessor organization called the Northampton Institute. But still, I have a tremendous sort of respect for an institution that survives 125 years. I don't know if you've ever thought about concepts like that, but it takes a particular type of organization that continues and sort of is around in 125 years. I mean, will this school be around in another 125 years? Would any of our businesses be around in 125 years? Who knows? But I think longevity is something I have a lot of respect for nowadays. I learned that it was elevated to the City University, today's title, in 1966, which is the year before I was born. Now, sometimes I wonder, we heard 48,000 alumni from the business school. Why the hell did you choose me? There must be other candidates. Maybe they were just looking for a minor celebrity who's well known in the UK and had nothing better to do on a cold Monday night in November, other than to turn up to his alma mater. So I will talk about the subject of entrepreneurship and giving back. Now, the problem is, as soon as you give an entrepreneur a microphone, he will talk about himself. So inevitably, what I'm going to talk about is my business and my giving back, my charitable giving. So forgive me for the inevitable commercial. I'll try and make it, as I said, entertaining. There will be questions, so if you think I'm sort of glossing over something, feel free to ask me a question. But the main reason I'm here, other than I had nothing better to do, is because I see my giving back starting from my alma mater. When I decided that I had to repay a debt to society, I came back to my universities, because I did a first degree at the London School of Economics and a second degree here. And then as well, I went to my high school in Greece, and I now have scholarships across the institutions where I've worked. Now, just to prove that I was here, this is a picture of me in a class in the Barbican Center in 1987. So, more or less the same jacket, slimmer, more hair. But the real star of my connection, my relationship with the City University, is actually the gentleman on the right, who's Professor Grammenos. Professor Kostas Grammenos, a fellow Greek, could not be here today because he's suffering from a flu. And of course, he is staging his own extravaganza of conferences on Wednesday and Thursday. So he said he's going to stay in tonight and try and recover from his flu so he can be in full force on Wednesday. By the way, he convinced me to speak again on Wednesday. I mean, I'm doing it twice for the school in 1 week. Now, the gentleman facing Professor Grammenos is on the right. The gentleman on the left is my late father, Lucas. Now, I'm not joking that Grammenos had his ambition to create a great course here when I was about 14 years old. They're now celebrating sort of 35 years. So when he met me, we were sort of exercising, we're training in a gym in Greece, where I grew up. And he said, one day you'll come to London and study my course. I said, really? Who are you? And that was Professor Grammenos. And that's, I think it's very important to set goals in life. So from a Greek boy, to coming to an institution like this. The other thing I wanted to sort of do a bit of reminiscing about, if you like, is the debate I had with my late father whether I should study law or economics or accounting. My father said you should study law, because in what we do in shipping, law is very important and everything else. I said, no, I want to do economics, and I want to go to the LSE and then go to a business school. I don't want to be a lawyer. Now, I don't know what happened, but 35 years on, I spend more money on lawyers than any other profession. So maybe my late father was right. And I'll explain a bit about why I'm spending so much money on lawyers. But equally, again, if I'm going to use this lecture to give advice to younger people, accounting is very important too. And economics has actually a practical application. I mean, I look at many businesses nowadays, startups, and my first question when I see the entrepreneur that we're doing a joint venture with is, where is your P&L, where is your balance sheet? Where is your cash flow statement? Don't talk to me about ideas and websites and everything else. Show me your P&L, your balance sheet, and your cash flow. So I don't think you can actually run a business unless you understand accounting statements. And there is actually application in economics. The demand curve that's downward sloping. So in very simple terms, when I started EasyJet, I said, people, when they fly around Europe, they pay about £100, round numbers. So 1994, 95, they were paying £100 one way for a flight of about 2 hours within Europe. And I discovered a way of doing it for £50. And the result of that is twice as many people will fly. That's called elasticity of demand. So it's as simple as that. You learn something at university and you try and apply it in real life. As I said, I do a significant amount of my giving back to society through the university. So we have 125 scholars that have been through the school so far. £1.25 million in the last 13 years. But we stay in touch with them. We have a Facebook group and we do events for them, and we have our headquarters in Thurlow Square in London, and we invite them at least once a year. So I believe that of the 6 current scholars, most of them hopefully are in this room. Would you mind standing up so we can thank you and congratulate you for being our scholars for this year? They're over there. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good luck, and don't forget, when you actually build your own business and you make a lot of money, you come back and give something back to your university. Give back something back to society. So, as I said, this is my charitable activity. I gave it my own name. It's clearly self-centered. But I also will talk about the business side, the Easy family of brands. So if you allow me, I'm going to talk a bit about the business side, a bit about the charity, and then we'll open it up to questions. So this is the first flight. 10th of November, today is the 4th of November, so I don't know what possessed me. I always come to London in November. The weather is not very good, but I had this idea that you can fly between Luton Airport, north of London, and Glasgow for £29. Every seat on every flight. And guess what? People did turn up. And that is actually a real photograph from 7 a.m. on the 10th of November before the first takeoff. The other thing I always admit is that this is not a financeable business plan. No bank would have given you money to start this. If you're 28 years old from Greece and you come to Luton to fly people to Glasgow for £29. So the only person who would finance that was my father, and I'm eternally grateful to him. So in a way, a shipping fortune, if you like, created this aviation business. The way I've decided to structure my business is it's unusual. Not everybody does it this way. I'm going to explain it to you. Perhaps it suits my talents, and that's how I prefer to run things. But rather than stay in one business and say I'm going to sort of be the hands-on boss and manager of a single business, I said I want to own the brand. I want to own the intellectual property of the company rather than the bricks and mortar, the assets, the aeroplanes, the ships, whatever it is. So I created a company I call Easy Group, which is my own, and I kept all the intellectual property in Easy Group. The effect of that is that when the airline floated on the London Stock Exchange in the year 2000, because aeroplanes are expensive and you need a lot of capital to invest in them, to grow, I said I have to share the risk with others, and we raised money, and as a result we got diluted down to this 1/3, but I still own the name. Another example, when Easy Hotel sort of grew up and got to a stage that we had to raise outside capital, we also floated on AIM. And actually, recently, if you follow the financial press, there was a takeover bid by two investment funds, a Canadian and a French investment fund, because they believe in the business so much, they want to put more money in and grow it even further, which for me is music to my ears. Contrary to what some of the headlines may have suggested that I'm resisting it, actually the only thing I said is I don't want to sell because I think there's more potential, but we can work together to grow the business. But the point in all of this is, let me ask a question from the audience just to make sure you're listening. How many of you have flown EasyJet? Show of hands. Thank you, everybody. Every time you buy a ticket on EasyJet, 0.25% of that value goes into Easy Group as royalty. So in a way, every time you stay in an Easy hotel, actually 0.75% from Easy Hotel goes to Easy Group. So what I've managed to create is not only the capital gains that are unpredictable. We're going to talk about business creation and startups and everything else, and it's a bit unpredictable. I've created a predictable income stream off the revenue line, which is called royalty. And I use that royalty because it's recurring and predictable to give back to society. So as you will see, my giving is not a big donation one-off, but regular giving every year. If you like, giving back some of the profits of Easy Group. Now, I put up these two charts, these maps, or route maps of EasyJet, because I know it's difficult nowadays to stand up and give a lecture on anything without mentioning Brexit. So I decided to preempt the point, and I'm sure you will have other questions. But you wouldn't have started EasyJet, certainly not in London, if you believed that Europe would start putting up barriers again. The dream was always everybody in Europe can fly from anywhere to anywhere without any restrictions or barriers. The concept is called open skies. I didn't invent the idea, I copied it from the United States. So the Americans, continental United States, is its own open skies area, and that's why they have many airlines and new startups, and they invented low-cost flying. And we wanted to replicate the same thing in Europe. But what Brexit has created, and it hasn't yet happened yet, and we don't know in what form it will happen, is has created this concept that the airline that flies in and out of London, the map on the left, has to be owned by British people, and the airline on the right that flies, and I picked Berlin there, which is one of the big bases, has to be owned by Europeans other than British. Now, luckily, because we're Cypriot and British, EasyJet has both types of shareholders. So the contingency plan of the company is duty bound to all its shareholders to have a plan. When Brexit was voted, some very clever lawyers went away and said, how do we solve this? But fundamentally, a subsidiary, an operating entity, a second operating license was obtained from Austria, which is still in the EU 27, and the British company remained in London, and therefore, hopefully life will carry on as usual, which is my hope. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I would like to think, I don't know about every walk of life, and you all come from different industries and businesses, but hopefully for aviation, this will be business as usual. Nothing will change. I think it would be a shame if suddenly you have to get a visa to go to Europe, or Europeans have to get a visa to come to the United States, or that every country is a sort of small national monopoly or duopoly or whatever. So the open skies of Europe is something we created in the last 25 years, and I hope it will survive and remain. I'm going to talk a bit about the smaller brands and businesses I've created. What I've discovered is there is a lot of value in the Easy brand, and that encourages people to think of a business model that they want to use the brand in. And you can have capital-intensive businesses like airlines or hotels, but there are smaller businesses through franchising that literally anybody can start, and then through franchising can encourage others to copy them, basically, to do what they're doing. But what they need is a brand. I mean, the most famous franchise is probably McDonald's. And one of the most successful is Subway sandwiches. So small little businesses that run their own sandwich shop. So we have several of those in the Easy Group, because I realized that if we go to a franchise exhibition, like the one that happens in Olympia in Earls Court or in Birmingham, there are a lot of people, these are real pictures from our stand, a lot of people come and say, I want an Easy Coffee franchise. I want an Easy Property franchise, estate agents basically, using the brand. One of my favorites is Easy Dog Walker. So what happened is I was flying on an EasyJet plane, like I often do, and I pay for my ticket. And I talked to the cabin crew, and Lucy, who was the cabin senior on that day, said, I like my job here, but I want to leave and start my own business. I said, Lucy, what do you do? I have this business walking dogs. And she was calling it Lucy to the rescue, walking dogs. And I said, listen, we have a competition where we encourage people to start a business using the Easy brand. Why don't you apply? And if your numbers make sense, we're going to do it together and call it Easy Dog Walker. So Lucy is no longer a cabin crew member. She's self-employed, she's her own boss. I gave her some equity and the brand, and hopefully she will grow her own business. And she's slowly recruiting other people to do what she does, because this is not capital intensive. This is basically one person, one area, finding customers, £10 an hour, walk the dog. So that's a classic example in my mind how you can use franchising to grow a business. As a result of this proliferation of brands, we've accumulated a portfolio of 1,000 trademarks. A trademark is a legal monopoly to use a brand. And of course, because Easy has an ordinary meaning in the dictionary, it took a long time before we could actually establish a monopoly to use the name. So the best way to do it is to have as many trademarks as possible. So Easy whatever, Easy everything, Easy 1, 2, 3. So we've accumulated all these trademarks, we use them. I mean, the thing on the left is an advertisement at the Chancery Lane tube station that has all the brands on a poster. The reason we chose that tube station is because it's next to the courts, the High Court in London, where all the judges and the lawyers walk past every day. So we remind them. We even put them on buses. I won't bore you with the details, but we take people to court, because you can't charge for a brand if you let people use it for free. So we've taken Carrefour to court when they started a business in Belgium called Easy Supermarkets in Orange. Complete rip-off. And they sort of saw sense and they backed off. The serviced office company, Regius, Air China, started a route from Europe to China called it the Easy Way. They were well advised to stop. One of the better known cases, and you'll probably hear something about this in the next couple of months, Netflix started a TV series called Easy. Again, white on orange. And of course we do a lot of television ourselves, so we don't want someone there messing about the search engine optimization and appearing and everything else. So we've written them some robust legal letters. And if you go now on Netflix, you'll see that the wording has changed to end series Easy with capital white on black. So even almighty Netflix has decided to actually move away from the brand. And that's what normally happens. You send a message, people change, people do something. Do we have any lawyers in the room? Show of hands? Not many, okay. I thought there would be more lawyers in here, so I won't bore you too much with it. But this is another live case, which is a legal heaven or nightmare, depending whether you're paying for the lawyer, you're the lawyer receiving the fees, that is going through the High Court in London as we speak. So this is a guy that wanted to be the Stelios of Colombia. So he started an airline called Easy Fly, and then he registered other names like EasyJet and Easy Hotel and Easy Travel and Easy this and Easy that. So we've been playing this cat and mouse game in different jurisdictions. Now, long last, we had our day in court in London, and the case continues, as the newspapers say. But it's fascinating that a trademark is a territorial right. So you can be the best known in Europe, but someone else can try and steal your brand in Colombia. As I said, heaven for lawyers. And maybe my father was right. Maybe I should have become a lawyer rather than come to Professor Gramenos. But I enjoyed Professor Gramenos in his course. Now, one last point about the business side, and then I'll go quickly through the charity side. With Kostas Andriopoulos, who's going to grill me in a minute, we're starting a competition. This is hot off the press, so it's the first time that this has been announced, and the details will be explained on the 21st of November. We are encouraging CAS current students and alumni to be decided up to how many years after they've graduated, to apply to start a business under the Easy brand. And we're going to give them some cash prizes to encourage them to spend the time to go through the competition. And then if they're successful, we're going to invest in them. So again, any CAS students or graduates, Kostas Andriopoulos will be Santa Claus, will be handing out money. So, very quickly through this, and then we'll open it up for questions. This map sums up our mission statement. As I said, it's very centric, but it's not just centric about my life. This is actually what my father did. The poor little boy from Cyprus that moved to Greece and started a shipping empire and had an office in London because that's what shipping people do. And then when he made enough money, he went to Monaco. So that's Lucas. And you know, we decided to stick to the same geography, if you like, and I believe in giving close to home. I mean, there are far bigger philanthropists and fortunes than mine. You know, take the Bill Gates Foundation, they want to eliminate malaria from all over the world. They go to Africa because that's where the neediest people are. I've decided to do it close to home. We bought some nice buildings, like the one in Thurlow Square here in London on the top left, but equivalent in the other countries. And we do make them available for charities to use pro bono. So if you have a charity in mind, if you are a charity, a registered charity, not a business, and you'd like to use one of these spaces for your own fundraisers, let us know. Tracy is sitting over there that runs the UK space, and we'll be happy to make the space available for a good cause. This is combining entrepreneurship with a good cause. I didn't know all these things until I got involved with them, but people with a disability have a problem getting a job. In reality, very few companies employ disabled people, either consciously or subconsciously, it doesn't matter. So about half the disabled people are actually out of a job, unemployed. So one way out is to start their own business, and we've been helping people start their own business for the last 13 years with this disability charity. Cyprus. How many of you have been to Cyprus? Show of hands. Good. Oh. More than lawyers. That's interesting. If you look at this map, I mean, if you landed on Earth from Mars and someone told you there is an island like this, you wouldn't believe it probably. But there is a Greek Cypriot community, there is a Turkish Cypriot community, the two colors, the gray and the yellow. There is a bit in the middle, in the green zone, which they call no man's land, and is controlled by the United Nations. Significant area. I mean, it has checkpoint Charlies, like the one here, like Berlin used to be, or like North Korea, or places like that. So it has happened, but it doesn't happen every day. And then the red bits is the British sovereign bases. The British, when they gave Cyprus independence, says, we like this island so much, we're going to keep some of it. So it is a very unusual situation. So I grew up going to Cyprus for holidays to see my grandmother, and in 1974 something happened. Most of you probably know what happened. One side calls it one thing, the other side calls it the other thing, but the island got divided. So I grew up with a divided island, and I said, when I'm going to start giving back to society, maybe I should help to solve this problem. Now, the best way I could think of is to actually, again, use entrepreneurship and give financial incentives. So literally for the last 11 years, we've been handing out cash prizes to Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots who cooperate. We started in business, but now it's all walks of life. It's not a very popular project at the moment. You know, I'm not a politician. I don't want to be a politician. I'm not going to sort of run for president of Cyprus or anything like that. But I've been watching this for 11 years, and it has its ups and downs. There are periods of time when the two communities are closer together and they feel closer together, like 2-3 years ago. And now the tensions are high and people don't want to talk to each other that much. So although I didn't want to get involved in politics, we follow the cycle, if you like, of the mood on the island. The number of people who apply for our prizes is a barometer for the political situation in Cyprus. But this is not a good reason to stop. Just because it's not as popular as it was, or it's a bit controversial. Because remember, I'm a Greek Cypriot, I'm giving money to the enemy, according to some people. But for me, this is the time to carry on, this is the time to keep giving, and hopefully, when the two communities get to know each other well, there will be no war. For me, that's the end game. No war. The last sort of big project from my foundation, which is centered on Greece. This is a real photograph from one of our properties in a street called Evripidou, number 10 in Evripidou, in the center of Athens, which used to be a very busy center, but something has happened in the last couple of months, and the numbers have gone through the roof. They've tripled in that particular point. So we can speculate why, but imagine this. We have distribution points, 12 in total, and we hand out snacks. Now, I should have brought an example with me. I usually use it as a prop. But it's nothing more, nothing less than an industrially produced snack you'll find in a supermarket or in a periptero, as we call them in Greece. They retail for about €1 each. I mean, we buy them a lot less because we buy millions and millions of them. But in reality, what you're giving these people is something they can buy for €1. And most of them stand in line for 15-20 minutes to receive 2 of them. So for the sake of receiving something which is food, it's calories to live another day, they're willing to stand in line rather than use €2 to buy them. And the number of visits in a month now has jumped to 350,000. 350,000 times people come to our distribution points in a month to receive a snack or 2 snacks. The inevitable bar chart on the left, because I couldn't believe it, we had to look at the statistics, but year on year, October is up 62% and 250% from August. August is generally a low point because Greece is nice and warm and people go on holiday, or even the poorest in society can get a job, a seasonal job in the islands and everything else. So from a relatively low point in August, the numbers have gone up 250%. So something has changed, and it has to be linked to the recent immigration wave, which is another controversial subject. Governments don't like to talk about this thing, because if you ever wanted a picture that there is a problem, all you have to do is go and stand there and take a picture of the people in line. So, I'm not trying to change anything. I don't have the power to change anything. But Greece used to have a financial problem. It's recovering now. Very good news. I mean, the number of, if you like, Greeks who go to these points is going down. But there are other people who need our help. And there are people and we have to help them. We always give without discrimination. So for me, this is a very interesting turn in the Greek drama, if you like, what has happened in the last couple of months. Last point about me, and then, as I promised, we'll open it up for questions. A couple of years ago, I joined a club. Now, I bet you most of you belong to some sort of a club, a yacht club, a club on Pall Mall or something like that. But this is a club of people who sort of like to give back, philanthropists, if you like. It's led by Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. It was started in 2010, and they made the announcement about themselves that they give the majority of their fortune to a good cause, either immediately or by will at the end, and inevitably most of us create our own foundation. The only thing that confused matters is that Warren Buffett didn't want to create a foundation and pledge the money into the Bill Gates Foundation. But that's unusual, if you like. Most people actually create their own foundation and their own causes. And the Greek word I use for this is stereophymia. Loosely translated in English, I would say legacy. In Greek, literally, it means reputation after death. So for the Greeks, it's a very powerful concept that you have a reputation for the long run. And that's why I'm fascinated with 125 years of this institution. So will my charity be around in 125 years? Depends on the trustees and the institutions we put in place and how it's governed and everything else. But the idea is that it will be organized in such a way that we will invest conservatively and will give a portion of the income to good causes. And that's really my long-term ambition.
I think it would be remiss of me if I didn't say a few words by way of thanks for what was a tremendous lecture. I mean, it is an important series for us. So we're celebrating our 125 years. And so I've had the pleasure of attending some of the other lectures, but this was an outstanding one. As you'll know, because you picked up from the comments that Stelios made, he is a great friend of City and of CAS, is a tremendous role model for our students, and I think an inspiration to all of us. So thank you for your comments tonight. And I was reflecting, as many of you must have been, about how you could apply the Easy name. And of course, the first thing I thought of, being the president of the university, was Easy University, and that's probably the one name that wouldn't work, would it? You just think
contradiction in terms.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't work.
You don't want your university to be too easy.
Too easy, a tremendously hard university might sort of work. Also, Stelios mentioned about longevity and your admiration for institutions that have survived a long time. Of course, there's only one organisation that survived longer than universities, and that's the Roman Catholic Church. And one of the questions is asked of universities as to why on earth they've managed to survive so long. And the reasons often given are around changing continuously, staying relevant. But the thing that all of the commentators have in common when they've been looking at this is sticking to their values. And I think if I had to summarise the universities that have done well and have survived for a long time, it is sticking to their values. Obviously, the main second part of this evening was about philanthropy, and I was fortunate to be with Stelios in Monaco during those early days when you were setting up this scheme where snacks were being handed out. And at that time, I know they vary now, but there were croissants, weren't there? There were
That's one of the snacks. Yeah.
It was one, and it was one of the early ones. And the relevance of these very simple items, you see them in Greece, you see them hanging on stands by the side of railway stations, don't you? And you just walk past them. In Stelios' hands and the way he's used them, these are powerful. These are changing people's lives. They're keeping people alive. They're keeping their children alive. And you realise how important philanthropy is and how important this business engine is to keep the philanthropy running. So thank you very much, Stelios. I think by linking those two parts of your talk together, you've made that point very powerfully to all of us. But there is one thing I would say that there was one thing that I did have a question mark over when you were talking, I don't think you stop dreaming at the age of 52. I think we'd all question that one. And on that point, I'd like to end. I'd like you to join with me in thanking Stelios for a tremendous lecture and then join us for drinks. Thank you.